The Mango After Hours podcast is provided for general information, personal use, and entertainment purposes only. We do not verify or independently confirm stories, claims, or statements made by guests. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the host, producers, sponsors, or affiliates. Nothing shared on this podcast should be considered legal, medical, financial, or professional advice. Always consult a qualified professional before making decisions based on this content. Mention of specific brands, products, individuals, or businesses does not imply endorsement. All trademarks are the property of their respective owners. If you disagree with something shared on this podcast or believe there is another side to the story, reach out. We may invite you to share your perspective in a future episode. Now sit the fuck down and enjoy the show.
Officially started. This is episode 21, and before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank ThinkGrow LED, best LEDs out there. If you don't know about them, go ask somebody that has them, and they'll tell you the best lights they ever use and will ever use. TrollMaster, the best controller, most controller just used around the world for hydroponics, cannabis grows, and soon horticulture. Mango juice. If you're not juicing, you're losing. Last but not least, it's a great place right here behind this Mango Tech store that allows us to use the space to host this podcast. And today we have a repeat offender, a guy that comes on the podcast quite often, and I needed a filler for this spot. Because a little bit of the drama lately.
A filler, not even a main course.
A little bit of filler. A filler in. There's a couple of people that canceled. We're gonna bring you in when when the time is right.
You know where you stand.
A couple of people canceled. You come by all the time. I gotta pull you to come in here anyway. So don't act like you wanted to come in.
That kind of treatment. I mean, you're wondering why I'm not. Chomping at the bit, yeah.
For you guys that don't know who this guy is, I'm going to refresh your memory. He was the first person to ever be on the podcast. His name is Josh Barker, and he's the director of cultivation at Miami Mango Cannabis. And today, we're going to, something's off. I'm looking at that video over there. It's too bright in here. Hold on a second. I want to borrow these for now. It's too bright. Bright light. Anyway, I brought Josh in because I wanted to discuss a couple of new things that we've been working on at the facility. There's always something going on at the facility, some kind of issue or some kind of voila moment or stuff like that. So I figure it's about time to bring it in and discuss about a couple of things. First thing that I want to discuss is there was a post the other day on Instagram that goodbye, people are leaving. 5:30 after hours, they're closing. They don't know we're videoing. It's an off day. But anyway, it was a video that Powerhouse, Sergio from Connect posted. And it was an excerpt from MJ Biss. We're talking about under-canopy lights. Have some kind of under-canopy lighting, you're not going to make it, especially if you're in a single tier. One thing that was mentioned earlier by Bobby is that we've been harvesting anywhere a 63-day strain that is a 9-week strain. We're constantly been harvesting at day 52. We're shaving 11 days of pretty much just about every strain. And then they decided to put this excerpt in there where I said that we're shaving 11 days of our cultivation harvest time from roughly 62 days. Some strains may be 58, some strains may be 64, 65, but we can, get them all down to about day 52. They're all done, they're all cooked. And people were jumping at the bit, telling me that under-canopy doesn't shorten the time. And they're right, under-canopy doesn't, is the far red and spectrum tuning. We were supposed to do a video about that, through the security camera, the controller, but we just never got to it. But we need to do one of those to show people that we're not lying to anybody. We actually do take this. Every other Monday, we harvest about 110 to 130 lights average. Correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I know that you had a write up in the CCI book. We did a write up. The Miami Mango Cannabis. You took the lead on that, but I think we just did a second one. It was a CCI, not the CCI big black book, but the what's it called, the internet edition, that you
E-edition.
E-edition that you could download. Which, by the way, there is a link in my bio at Miami_Mango_CA. There is a link in there. Anybody that doesn't know about spectrum tuning, you can go in there and you can download it for free. Check it out. And we're getting ready to release an updated version of it. Is there anything different that you want to discuss that that you've learned over time? Because we've been doing this now for about 2 solid straight years.
Yeah, easy, if not a little bit more. I mean, I was very hesitant in the beginning. I mean, you know me, I'm like, hey, we can't put anything out there that isn't 100% true. You know, like the last thing I want is to put something out there that's not necessarily true. And so when we first started, I was like, you know, we really need to try this with every genetic. We need to, you know, do it across the board. You know, all the way through the entire facility, different lights, you know, multi-tier versus single tier, and just try it all. So even, you know, people in this industry are very skeptical with a lot of things, right? 20 years ago, 15 years ago, if somebody told you, oh, I could change the irrigation strategy of your small grow or your trap or whatever it was, and instead of getting that 1.5 pounds of light that everybody was killing it, if you were getting 2 pounds of light back in 2008, you were crushing, right? You were absolutely crushing. But what if somebody came in a time machine and said, hey, by just you know, drip irrigating a little bit differently in certain stages of the plant's life, I could get you all the way to 3.5 pounds of light. People would be like, you're fucking crazy. You know, they're like, no, I'm not going to change what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. So initially when we started, you know, posting on Instagram, you know, I didn't see any other facilities that were trying that kind of stuff. I didn't see it. And I was nervous. I was like, you know, fuck, man, I'm about to put myself out there like this. You want me to put my name on all this stuff? But we did it so consistently for so long, and really the market is what told me to be confident in my ability to put it out there, or for us to put it out there. The market was like, dude, this shit's smoking. It's you know, great product in a really tough market. You know, we've talked about that before. That's where I got my confidence, and I was like, you know what, they're right. Like I'm not second guessing myself. You second guess yourself a lot in this industry. Well, I wasn't. And lo and behold, you know, fast forward, other lighting companies are now introducing far red as an individual spectrum to use after lights off, and they're having the exact same results that we had. We initially came out and people said we were full of shit. Now other companies are doing it. What now? You know, and since then a lot of things have changed. You know, I've pushed things a little bit harder. I've pushed things too hard. But I think at the end of the day, it's pretty well known in the industry now that far red as an individual spectrum after dark 100% changes the physical traits of that flower earlier. And meaning it'll senesce faster and better to a certain extent, but with more color. And I think so many people are now trying that and seeing the results of it. And like I said before, you know, we tried it with so many different genetics. Not every genetic is going to finish on day 52.
Correct.
You know, it just so happens that the candy genetics that everybody loves, or that we have to grow, you know, out here in this market, that's the one that it just so happens to do the best with.
It does,
you know?
through time and color structure.
Yes, everything. And so, but there were also genetics that were like, this is a 70-day genetic that we're now at 63.
Correct.
You know, there's the Skittles crosses that everybody, you know, it's very difficult to grow Skittles or Skittles-based crosses. It's just the way it is. Everybody knows it's a bitch to clone. You got to veg it extra. You got to baby it. You got to irrigate it the right way, or you're going to get mold on that strain. Some people are cutting down on day 39, day 40.
And that's funny.
Right? I'm seeing Dave from Preferred cutting down at like 39 or something. I think
he said 36 to
36
to 37, and
right?
We've been doing 36 to 39, 40. 42 was overdone.
Yeah,
on the Skittles.
I took it every day. You know, I took some at 35 all the way to day 42, push it to day 45 just to see, right? Because certain genetics, like Glenn was saying, you know, on the toad, for example, you can push it further and get a different profile out of it, right? So it's like, do you want the more Skittles leaning profile? Do you want the more OG gassy leaning profile? There's all these determining factors.
He said there was more flavor. I mean, different flavors. At 63, it was like Skittleish maybe.
Yep.
And then towards the 68, 70, it was more gassy funk.
Right.
If
So,
remember correctly.
yeah, I think there's so many people trying, you know, so many different things when it comes to lighting, and I think the far red was just the icebreaker, you know, that is really going to change a lot about the way, you know, cultivators grow at scale here in California and probably all over the world.
It's a shame that I get deleted from Instagram a lot because there was a lot of videos that I did on Instagram where, like you said, when we first started, that you were very reluctant. And by the way, just give you a little history. Josh came from a place close to me that was 700 or so light LED space, and they didn't share anything. You know what I'm saying? They didn't want to share nothing. They didn't let anybody go to the facility. And then he changed to our place, and we're like, we're going to show everybody everything. We're going to do tours, open every day of the week, whatever, as long as it's scheduled, they can come tour by, and we're going to share all this knowledge. And then that to him was a shock because he wasn't used to it. Plus, it maybe puts him on the spot. And he, like you said, sometimes you overthink yourself, you second guess yourself until you do this so many times that it's like, fuck, okay, this wasn't once you were a two-C, this is consistent. And the first test that we did, I remember when we started growing, there was a new facility, new employees, new everybody. We weren't used to anything. So we first ran the lights full spectrum, and we didn't mess with shit.
Right.
For about a year, because we were also developing a Nutriline, that's a whole another podcast of issues that we had that we figured out, with the pH and different pHs and all that kind of stuff. But I think it was about almost about a year and a half that we were somewhat comfortable enough. We are going through our nutrient development issues, and then we said, you know what, let's start playing with spectrum tuning. And what everybody started talking at that time, or the buzz, was the far red. And we started playing with the far red in a certain room where we actually dropped curtains. I got Panda film, put it back to back black, so it would reflect on others, and we would drop, I built this contraption that would roll down the curtain, you could say, at the end of every day. And then in the morning, they would roll back up, and we did that through several harvests, and then moving the curtain so we did one row, one double rack on this side, the other double rack on that side, and they responded well. But we said, you know what? The dehu was on this side. Maybe the heat was a factor.
Yeah, we had some environmental issues in the room
that we thought, you know what, it was a fluke.
It's like it's really hard to have a perfect run.
Right.
So there's all these extra variables that you have to account for. And so we did, but then we eventually got to the point where we were doing 80% of the room far red.
Correct.
And 20% of the room control.
And it still worked.
And it still worked. And I just remember you were just like, run it. Like,
let's just do the whole
run
fucking thing.
Run the whole facility. And we did, and I think for the better, obviously. The additional harvest that we're getting per room is astronomical in today's market when everything is so low. I think it's huge. I think efficiency is huge in any commercial cultivation or any commercial setting, really. But now we're on to the next thing, and it's like originally UV was, it's always been available on our Think Grow 4 Spectrum channel bars, but just like Angelo, right? When you told him to crank the UVs to 100% and it burned his room, it's
twice.
like, yeah.
I think about it twice.
It's
this was early on.
He was the guinea pig in that sense.
Yes,
but like,
he was.
That gave me, I'm a pause, and I'm like, yo, let's not crank these UVs up 100%. And they're also the hottest diode, right? So they give off the most radiant heat. There's very small amount of actual diodes on the fixture, but you're still going to get that reaction from the plant that the UV does give. So I started off light. Once we dialed in the spectrum, cycle tuning, how we do it from the beginning to middle bulk to finish, I started cranking that UV up a little bit higher. And, previously on the original CCI book, again, I was worried. I don't want to tell people, right? Everything's relative to their setup. Every piece of information you could ever read or accept or listen to here, whatever you want to call it, is all relative to your specific situation.
By the way, he's the guy with reason. He's always wants to under-promise, over-deliver, and I'm like, pedal to the metal, full gas, let's go. So there is some kind of a balance. Most, some of the time he's slowing me down. I'm like, go.
Well, so many people were hitting me up, and they would be like, dude, we read the CCI article. It's great, but like, is there a specific percentage that you want us to, percentages that you want to start with on all these colors? And I was like, well, it's all relative to your setup. Are your lights 36 inches away from your canopy? Are they 44, 48? Are they fixed? Do you have the ability to lower them? And
630 watts, 720 watt,
Yes,
810 watt, 900 watts.
And they want specifics. They want like this blueprint essentially. And I'm like, that doesn't exist unless I dial your place in. I'm not gonna just put these settings out there. And that was frustrating to me because I felt like I gave enough information to where a cultivator could then take that information and apply it to their situation relatively. And it just isn't.
But you got to put yourself in their position, kind of like you were at the beginning of your position. You didn't know anything about it, but now that you're playing with it, you kind of understand it. A lot of these people, this is new. As much as we think that a lot of people know about the spectrum tuning shit, you know what I'm saying? It boggles my mind when somebody like that post that Sergio put on there, how many people actually, like call me an idiot, call me stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, fugazi or whatever, that don't have a fucking clue about what we're talking about. They're like under a rock somewhere. So there is as many people as we know that know about it, there's a lot of people that are behind the times and they just haven't caught up.
There's also a lot of people that just don't want to accept your information.
True too.
They'll go run the exact same recipe through another brand just because it's not you.
100%.
Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. People just do that. It's a lot of ego and pride in this industry, and for whatever reason, people have their own reasons. They'll do it. They'll do stuff like that. And
what's up, guys? It's Mango here, and we're in the center of the Mango Tech showroom. When you say TrolMaster, you think controllers. When you say Thinkro LED, you think lighting. I'm here to tell you that TrolMaster and Thinkro are a whole cultivation system. Today we're going to touch on ICL 300s and the aero fans. There is no better combination in the market. ICL 300s are an inner canopy light that you set inside the canopy, and no, they're not 300 watts like some people may think. They're still 120 watts, but the 300 comes because they shine in 300 degrees. The ICL 150 that's up and coming here shortly shines at 150 degrees because of its reverse V or A-frame style fixture. The 120 that's coming out is just like all the other regular ICLs or under canopy lights in the market. The ICL 300 and the ICL 150 are 4-spectrum tunable channel lights. That means you can play with each spectrum up and down to figure out what your strain likes best. All right, behind me, you see a single tier and a double tier. On the single tier, we have the ICL 300s on some PVC stands and some Thinkro LED stands that bring the inner canopy light into the canopy, so the whole canopy gets lit up adaxially and abaxially, not just like an under canopy light, abaxially. All right, let's focus on the ICL 300 and the ICL 150. These are the Formula One, the Bugatti, the Ferrari of all inner canopy lights. Nothing comes even close to what these pair can do. Why? Because they're 4-channel spectrum tunable lights. You can tune your whites, your deep reds, your far reds, and your UV to a recipe that suits your plants. You guys remember at the beginning when I said that TrolMaster and Thinkro LED are a cultivation system, not just a lighting and controller company. And this is exactly what I was talking about. The ICLs are now set on a unistrut rail system that you'll never have to waste any time putting and taking off any stands. The rail will also double as a mount for your new TrolMaster aero fans to deliver freshly climate-controlled, CO2-enriched air into your canopy. Nothing else comes close. Check it out. If you're interested in this system, hit the link below, www.mangotech.store. We got you. From A to Z, one-stop shop. Let's go. So what Josh was saying when people were telling him, everybody wants the recipe, but even like you say it in cooking, I can give you the recipe, but it's not going to taste the same because it's the first time you're going to play with it. Kitchens or ovens, you have a gas grill, you have an oven that's has convection or not. You're going to have to compensate for things. The same thing, call it a grow room. It's an oven. You know what I'm saying? There's heating, there's cooling, there's CO2. There's fan, there's airflow, nighttime settings, daytime settings. So you kind of have to. He's going to give you an overall footprint of it, but you're going to have to play with it. Maybe fuck up a little bit to be able to figure out what ways to adjust. So he couldn't give you the par because he doesn't know what lights you have, same brand or anything, and then how far away you have it from your canopy. If it's a 4-foot table, 5-foot wide table, that matters on the Model Light Pluses.
Right.
You know,
Well,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
exactly. If you're fixed at 12 inches from your canopy, I'm not going to tell you to put everything at 100%.
You're gonna burn it.
Exactly. And
You're
it's
gonna
like,
burn it.
I wish I could give you that very simple setup, very simple thing, but it's just not the way it is. And, fortunately for me, when we first started doing this, because the Thinkro LED has group control and I can individualize the rows to a specific group and run just that spectrum on that one row and this
Strain
spectrum on
dependent,
this
too.
one.
Strain,
Yeah,
there's some, we all seen some strains that are very sensitive to light, and then like the tops will be small, and then you go down the
Yes.
plant, and the buds start getting bigger. So you got to
Yes.
adjust for that. So
And there's
that's what he's talking about.
there's nutrient lockout. There's so many different things. Your environment could be horrible, and it's like they expect this light to change everything, but it's like it's all relative to your setup. But that's where we get into, after talking to Jason, you and I have been on the same page with this for a long time. Is that once we figured out the correct color of that spectrum, now it's just about matching the intensity of that color during the period of time that you're cultivating. So your bulk, for example, is going to be more dominant on your deep red, but you're still going to keep your whites to a certain percentage to keep the PPFD overall at canopy level. There's more white diodes than there are deep red diodes.
Correct.
So you're going to have to keep those whites on, but you need to have a more dominant red spectrum.
And I think that's what Jason and
Yeah,
Jason and I talked about.
Yeah, sorry, I
having
lost my
presets.
train of
Correct, yeah.
thought. But yeah, we were talking about presets, and it's like you can now have those presets for a specific color, and now all you have to do is dial the intensity in. And that'll give people the opportunity to play with the color spectrum that we have, done so many trials on, and they can, lower and raise the intensity as relative to their canopy.
Right, so there's a couple of companies out there that have preset spectrums, but I think we took it to the next level to where we've been doing this now so long that we have spectrums to match irrigation strategies per se. So for stacking, and correct me if I'm wrong, for stacking, when he starts, obviously when you transfer the plants from the veg, you bring them into the flowering room, you match the DLI, they're roughly, 16 inches, 18 inches tall, depends if it's a single tier or double tier room. There'd be vegging 14 to 17 days, I think is the difference. 14 days is for double tier, 17 days for a single tier.
Correct.
I believe we're still on that.
Yeah, we're still doing
right?
that. Yep.
Roughly 3 days apart. And then, so he matches the DLI, and then we're on the stacking stage, the first 3 weeks of the plant's life. And then he starts increasing the whites, to match. He is inducing the far red at night to put the plants to sleep, what people say. I think we're back. We started, by the way, a long time ago. We did 30 minutes. We did 15 minutes. We did 8 minutes. We did all kinds. What are we doing now? Like 5 minutes after, or 8 minutes?
Right now what I've been doing is I've been keeping the far red on during the day. So our lights turn on at 6 a.m. The far red is going to also turn on at 6 a.m. at 5%.
Okay.
So a very, very small amount.
That's what I call microdosing.
It is a microdose. Throughout the day, it blends in with the rest of the color spectrum, so you're getting it, in conjunction with the rest of the light spectrums. And then for the additional 15 minutes after lights off, but that 15 minutes is a sunrise sunset mode, right? So that's our sunset. So that 5% goes to 4%, goes to 3%, 2%, 1%. So it's like a 15-minute sunset, essentially. So the PPFD, the actual par on the plant when that far red is on, is so minimal.
And
But it creates such a reaction. It's
I think,
insane.
correct me if I'm wrong, when we first started doing this, how strong did we have the far red when we first started playing with it? Was it 100%? 100%, I'd say.
100%.
And then we did
at
30
lights
minutes.
off, we did 30
50
minutes,
8 minutes,
15,
and we
8,
had
5.
tremendous amount of stretch. So people aren't wrong when they say, far red does stretch your plants. Yes, it does.
Oh, it absolutely
Absolutely
it
does.
creates what's called a shade of the plant believes that it's in the shade, so it's
reaching
like,
for
oh,
light.
shit, it's
Correct.
reaching, it reaches, it pushes, which is why I think having it in the same color spectrum as the blues, right? When we're in our generative phase and the plant's growing taller every day, you want to give it as much of a dominant blue spectrum as you can, and that'll keep it from the internodal spacing and stretching too hard, right? It'll give you more compact, tighter notes. And
what helps with that too is also that what I tell people is kind of like microdosing. I'm not a botanist. I don't have a horticultural major. I've said this a million times, but I've grown weed for a long time. I can walk into a room and know if somebody's using far red just because of the structure of the plant, the leaves, whether it's day or night, the way that they look, the color.
Yeah, everything
it's
about
a different color. It's not your forest green. It's kind of like a light fluorescent green, but the plants look. There's a certain thing about them that you just recognize it. So what he's done over time is, like I said, we microdose it because Think LED allows you to play with all 4 channels individually, and we've done videos to where we can see each light on, and he can play with, like I said, 5% red during the day. I call that a microdose. So you're giving it very, very light through the day. It's beneficial for the plant. We might not see it with our eyes, but the plant's actually absorbing that light spectrum. At nighttime, when the lights go off, like you said, he goes, he sets it for like the sunset mode. So it's on, did you say 5%?
Yeah, 5%.
5%?
Over 15 minutes down to
15
zero.
minutes and it's down to 0. So it's kind of like acting like the sun. And the plant at nighttime is also absorbing all those lumens from that far red or that spectrum and is benefiting the plant. That gives the plant the effect of the far red without the stretch, because we don't have stretch no more. Not like we used to at all.
No, we've limited it considerably, but a lot of that has to do with the high intensity of the blue spectrum as well,
Correct.
fighting against that. So it's like it wants to fucking stretch, it wants to grow,
But it has
feels
light.
like it needs to, but it's getting everything that it possibly can from the blues as well. It's like it's fighting against each other, and what I've noticed is that the plant produces more flower sites when you do that. It just did.
Once again, what I was saying, this is a stacking stage. We kind of told you a little bit about back history about the back red and what we do now. And then, you're stacking at the beginning. You don't really need a ton of deep red or UV. So then he has the whites, and he increases the whites through the whole stacking stage. And I think we're 100% pretty quickly. Say, correct me if I'm wrong, 16, 17, 18?
Depending on the
strain
the
strain
room, also
okay.
if it's a double
In
tier,
the light, yes, correct. How
know,
close they are
how
to the
close
light,
they are,
how
if
big
it's a
they went in.
taller genetic, exactly.
Like I said, there's no perfect recipe because sometimes things happen when things take a little bit longer or they veg too long or whatever it is. So you have to play with that. We can't tell you exactly what it is.
I've also been increasing the UV in the beginning as well. So that's what I'm doing now.
Okay.
Is, in the beginning I would only recommend going 10%.
Okay.
Right, for the whole 12 hours.
Okay.
12-hour cycle, 10%. Now, and then I started going up to 20, 30, 40. And as long as you're, like, there's a difference between your overhead lighting and your inner canopies, right? What I've told people, as far as under canopies or inner canopies go that have UV, it is going to create more radiant heat within that plant. Wherever that UV is shining, the more you crank it up, the more there's going to be heat in that section. The more you're going to raise the temperature of the actual light. And as long as you can keep your leaf surface temperature at the, where the leaves are at proximity to that UV bulb, you'll be fine. But if your leaf does touch that, you will see some type of, burn or whatever it is.
If you hold your finger on top of that UV diode,
yes, exactly,
it's going to burn it.
But I do, from what I've seen so far, I do believe that increasing the UV in the generative stretch as well in the first 2 weeks really does play a role as well. I think it increases the plant's ability to produce flower sites and stay more compact and stack more flower nodes. So it's something that, I've been playing with. It's something I'm very easing into little by little. I'm not going to crank it up to 100% and see what happens. As we know with Angelo, that just didn't work.
Right, no, it didn't work. That was very early on reselling.
I'm
LEDs.
definitely a proponent of UVs at the end, and keeping the whites really high and getting the UVs up there too. I'm up to 100% now on the UVs at the end. For about a 2 to 3 day period, we get up to 100 and stay there until the very end. But it is another portion of the spectrum tuning that's still evolving. I think UV is going to play a huge factor in the future with.
So average, what would you say? I think I was right. Somewhere on the day 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 that we're at 100% pretty much with the white intensity.
Yeah.
21.
Yeah, by like day. So we do our first initial default, right? And I don't like to be at 100% then, because I think, stressing the plant out a lot on default and then also blasting it with, 100% light intensity. It's just extra stress on the plant. I think it slows down the pistil formation or the
So a little bit longer.
Yeah. So I usually get it up to 100% within like 2 days after the default.
Okay.
So if we're defaulting on day 18, because, our 52-day cycle, really, everything's a little bit faster. By like day 21, we're at 100%.
Okay. And then at that time, that's when you're changing your irrigation strategy into bulking.
Correct.
And then the spectrum right there, you start really.
Once I see the plant stops growing vertically and the pistils just start getting longer and longer, I know it's time to switch that irrigation strategy and get the EC and the substrate lower, at most portions of the day, because you will get nutrient lockout. And, in rock wool specifically, that happens very fast. In cocoa, there's a big buffer. In soil, there's a buffer. And so you have to be really on top of it. And that 4-day window from like day 21 to 25 is crucial for that. You have to get it down.
You can make or break the run right there.
You can make or break the run. And it could still be a great run. But you might have a little bit of burnt tips on your candies, or you're gonna have some.
You fucking hate those.
Yeah, and that bothers me.
Why are you videoing that, man? It has burnt tips. I go, hey, you pushed it. What can I tell you?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's all about the customer, and if the customer is gonna pay less because there's burnt tips, then I'm gonna try to avoid that at all costs. I just think also the transition from stress to stress relief, in other words, generative to bulk. The flower burns better if it's less stressed, in my opinion. I think. I
agree with you with that.
I think the flower just burns better. It burns smoother. It burns cleaner. White ash, like everybody wants.
More flavor.
I think stressing it out can create a lot of oil. I think it can create a lot of resin, and it can make the flower look phenomenal. But again, I think at the end of the day, there's a balance between all of that. You got to have the look. You got to have the smokability. You got to have the nose. You got to have it all. If you want top dollar, you want to make a name for yourself, you got to have it all.
Understood. And so then that's at that time that he starts playing with the deep red diodes. The deep red actually starts getting into intense levels.
Yeah. So say we're at like 100% on the whites, and then we're at day 24. My EC and the substrate's going down every day, little by little. I'm now going to start increasing my deep red. So if my whites were at 100%, maybe my deep red was at 40, right, to that point. Now I'm going up to 50% on day 25, day 26. And then the next day, 60%, the next day, 70. And by day 28 to 30, I'm at 100% on my deep reds. And what will happen is the drivers in the Thinkro LEDs will
adjust.
They'll adjust the wattage, the way that it's dispersed between the different diodes. And you'll see that visually you'll be able to see a more red color spectrum. It's almost like that white color turns into more of a yellow color.
It kind of messes with the phone with.
Yeah, you'll see it on your phone if you're taking a video.
You kind of see it looks a little different.
Yeah, you'll see some lines, like you'll see the way it comes out. But the Thinkro driver will tell you, like, say for example on a Model H Plus, where it has the percentage on the front on the small LCD screen or LED screen, whatever that is. It'll tell you that the whites are now at like 82% when they were at 100, but it's because you gave that red spectrum more wattage.
And it has to compensate.
Yeah, it has to compensate. That 720 watts is going to be dispersed. The way you control it.
Correct.
So as you increase that UV, as you increase everything, the other percentages are going to fall.
They're going to lower. Correct.
Right, which is another part of the original CCI book where I was just like, people have to understand that these things are going to change periodically throughout the cycle. Your percentages, just because it says it's at 100%, doesn't mean that the light's actually going to be able to give it off if it's giving the wattage to another diode. You have to be able to understand that happens.
Like it's 720 watts or 630 watts full for that fixture. You know what I'm saying? But it's got to be dispersed by, this like I said, Thinkro LED has 4 individual channels, and you can play with it individually. But if this diodes have 100%, then but it's not as many of them. You're going to take some power away from the light from the other from the other diodes. So depending on the percentage, that's what is going to bring down the percentages of strength of all the diodes.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
And that's where preset colors come into play. And just being able to have a generative, a bulk, and a finishing color spectrum that you can lower and raise intensity on plays a big factor. It's spectrum tuning with training wheels.
Exactly. And then, like I said, that's something that we're working on to be able to bring to the Hydrex Pro. All right, so we were done with the bulking, and then now we're going to, the finishing stages. At that point in time, I believe your red's pretty much at your deep red's at 100%. Far red's still at the same old microdosing, which is just giving the plant what it needs. So you're kind of faking it in a way. So here's enough to keep you thinking that that whatever the far red does to the plant is doing it, because it's working wonders. And then the UV at that, do you ever get it to 100% the UV?
Yeah, I just recently started getting it up to 100%. So if I'm at like 30% during bulk, I'm doing the same thing like I did with the deep red. I'm going up 10% every day until I get to 100%.
Okay, so
usually I start doing that around day 40.
Okay.
So it kind of gives me a little bit less than a 2-week period to raise it up. Sometimes I do it at day 42, depending on many factors in the room. If we have an AC down, I'm not cranking the UVs up so fast, right? It's just not gonna be. It's not a good thing to add intensity to something that increases the heat when you don't have
nothing perfect.
cooling.
Correct.
Exactly.
And then you also start bringing down the whites, though.
Just a little bit, yeah. So like if my whites are now at 80%, I'm bringing the overall PPFD down. If I drop the deep red percentage, it's going to bring it down, but not a lot, because there's only so many diodes on that fixture. There's way more white diodes.
Correct.
So you have to bring the white diodes down just to get the overall PPFD down. Your plants are not uptaking nutrients like they were. They're slowly dying. Your VPD's higher. You're trying to dry out the plant a little bit more, create a little bit more stress. The plant can't accept all that light you're giving it. You're wasting your light at that point. So you can lower it a little bit to match. Basically, as your EC's coming down, your light PPFD needs to come down with it. But keep the white there. Don't get rid of it completely. Have heavy UV. And keep the white there, because that's what's going to really force the production out of those trichomes. Like, you can't just eliminate it altogether. I don't recommend that.
One of the comments that was on that page is that you're lacking quality, you're lacking terps, you're lacking this, and like I said, if we let that plant go longer than 52 days, it actually starts degrading. It is
absolutely
at peak ripeness.
Yes.
On most of them. There's actually some that could come down at some of the candy strains that are shorter than 63. Some of them look overdone, like a day 48, 49. There's a couple like the Mochi Runs that doesn't finish in the 52, so we don't run it much.
Right.
That one will probably need like a 56, 58. That's one of the ones. What's another one that doesn't happen to finish like in the 52 day range? Because we spoke with this about this at the beginning, that not every single strain, but very few strains, on the runs that don't finish at day 52. Mochi, I remember, is one of them that could go.
I would say the Z Scotty was one.
The Z Scotty.
Great genetics.
Great genetics.
Super
oh my
terpy,
God, the
big,
bottoms too.
Lowers. Everything was great on it. It just does not fit in that 52-day window.
52 range, yeah, that was another 58 or 60 day.
Yeah, and that's why it's like traditionally you have a 70-day strain. You might bring it down to 65, 63, somewhere around there. Not everything is just automatically going to go to 52 days. It just so happens that the most valuable genetics right now are the ones that are showing to have the most benefit under far red. The Skittles cuts, Zushis, all the Zushis, anything with Z in it, and basically anything candy.
What's crazy is that, somebody said it on, it could have been the Proper Smoke League thread or something, that the Skittles, like, with the spectrum tuning, you take it down and, like I said, anywhere from day 36 to day 40. 42 is a little overdone to me, but 36, 39 is the sweet spot. That you almost veg that plant as long as you flower it.
I mean, dude, we vegged Skittles for 7 weeks.
It seems like it grows a little fast at the beginning, and then it just stops.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this thing's gonna get big, and it just doesn't grow then after that. It just sits there.
Yeah, it's a tough strain. If you're gonna experiment with that genetic, I suggest doing it at small scale. I suggest doing it in individual rows so you can irrigate just that genetic itself. Don't try to pair it in the same row as something else that's going to want to drink more, and baby it. You know, if you can get it right, that strain's very valuable, and it creates a lot of value for yourself as a brand or a grower if you can really dial that genetic in. But there's a reason a lot of people don't grow it at scale.
Yep, yes, sir. So another thing that I want to bring up today that he doesn't know that I was going to bring up, but he got conned to come in here to talk about it today because I'm excited about this. And there's nothing for you guys. Got nothing to lose, zero to lose, because what we're going to do is we're going to do a swap out, 1-for-1. The only person that has anything to do is the guys that got fully disgruntled, grabbed the WCS2s and threw them in the trash, and they cursed me out. Okay, we've been doing a lot of testing, and I never see this guy excited. Fuck, I mean, this guy's fucking like he is not excited, and he's been telling me that the new we can't call it WCS2, but the new one up and coming is fucking working flawlessly. This is something that's been a thorn in my side, thorn in Trollmaster's side. We haven't gotten it right. We know that. But we never gave up, and we feel like we got it down. We're probably halfway through a run or two, and it has stayed right there with all the other water content sensors. I'm not going to call victory, but I'm just to let you guys know that if this goes twice without a hitch, anybody who's got a WCS2 is going to be able to swap it out. Swap it out. You don't have to spend a dime, $0, zero risk out of your pocket. We're going to swap it out and then get, brand recognition, brand confidence again on this water sensor.
Yeah, I didn't know much about Trollmaster when I first came to start working for you, but I learned quick about everything good and everything bad, and so many people just now I'm Trollmaster to so many people. Like they're just like, oh, what about this? What about this? Oh, that product sucks. And I'm like, what do you want me to do, man? Like, I'm like that shit's before my time, But Jason, he's a very passionate guy, and he cares so much, and has put the engineers and Jason and the whole Trollmaster team. They care so much about the water content sensor because it really is. It's necessary in today's market, right? So it's a very valuable product that everybody needs.
One of the main tools.
It is a fucking hammer. It is a drill in the fucking grand scheme of things. And he would just tell me like, man, we've spent so much time dialing this in, making it affordable. What's wrong with it? And it took me a while to figure it out. And trust me, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to run, the Miami Mango facility at scale with those sensors, But once I figured out, what was causing these issues, and I don't know if you want me to speak on behalf of the issues, but the original idea or design behind the WCS and WCS2 was, to have the EC and the water content percentage, right, displayed and have readings for what everybody expects from a water content sensor. But the engineers, when they were designing the software, didn't understand that with the new style of irrigation, you were going to be stacking EC in the medium for a good portion of the plant's life cycle. And it couldn't comprehend, based off the software, that the water content percentage could be high and the EC very high, right? So if we start and we're feeding at a 3 EC, which is like a traditional, number that a lot of people will start at, or a lot of people recommend starting at, but you want your medium EC to get up to a 5 to a 7 when you're stacking, right? So the engineers for Trollmaster were assuming that if you fed a 3 EC, you wanted the medium to stay at a 3 EC, right? And the only way that EC will rise is if the water content lowers. So as you're steering generatively and your EC is rising daily, now it's getting to a point where the sensor's like, holy shit, it's at a 7. There's no way it could be at a 7 if we're trying to maintain 3 the entire time. So it automatically would drop the water content. So your water content would be at a 65 and a 4 EC. And then all of a sudden it would stack and stack and stack, and then the water content would be like, oh, now it's at 20.
It was misinterpreting the data.
It was misinterpreting the data. It was giving us false readings. And then as, the user, I look at my water content sensors and when I'm stacking, and I'm like, holy shit, my water content just dropped down to a 20. I need to feed it. And so I'm hitting it with manual shots, and my water content percentage isn't going up. It's capped. It's capped at a lower one. So initially I was like, well, let's just recalibrate them. And that wasn't really an answer, but it worked. It worked for us. But I would have to go in daily and calibrate at capacity. And that would recalibrate the system. The EC reading would kind of normalize, but I never really knew what it truly was. Only way I could do that was with runoff. And so once I realized that this was the core issue, we had Alex Lim come by, the son of Trollmaster engineer, the main Trollmaster engineer.
Owner,
And
one of the owners.
One of the owners.
Yes.
And, we just sat there and we just, talked about it, and he agreed. We did, in F5, we must have had 6 different versions of software that we had on these plants, and we were just going through it run after run after run, talking on the phone daily, trying to figure out what we could do to fix this issue on the WCS2. And at the end of the day, Jason decided to go back to the drawing board, create an entirely new product that was based off of what we realized. And he told me, he said, this one's going to work great and it's going to be affordable. And now that we finally have them.
And this time I was the one that was very skeptic, and you're like the one that's fucking, fuck yeah, hell yeah. This is
I
working.
mean, dude.
And I'm the skeptical because just like you think that people think that you're Trollmaster, you should see the DMs I get.
Yeah, of course.
The comments that I get all the time. It's
of
like,
course.
fuck, I'm going to have to deal with this again.
Yeah.
But you know what? It is what it is. You have to deal with it. And I'm just stoked and happy that
so
we're
many,
getting a win.
People started tagging me in those posts where people would be throwing them away and all that shit. And I would just be like, God,
Hey, welcome to my world.
Like, this sucks. Like, it was like demoralizing.
Demoralizing is a
Fuck,
perfect
man.
word.
And
To say yes. It's like,
now, and like you brought it up, and we were talking, and I was like, a buyback program or something to like give these customers, what they lost in value with these bad sensors.
because nobody's, I mean, I can understand if I was a customer too. If I bought a product once and it didn't work, and then they tell me, hey, we improved the product, here's the second one, then I spend money again on that product and it didn't work, you're going to lose faith on the brand. I fully understand that. So we're going to, bring brand loyalty back, and then show appreciation. So for those that threw it away, I'm sorry, I can't help you. But if you have a bucket full or a few or 20 or 30, you're going to come back when we're ready, and we're going to swap those out, and we want to get, confidence back on the moisture sensors. They're a little different.
Two-prong.
Two-prong, kind of like the Arroyo.
Yes.
It's two-prong. And the good thing about this, they're going to be super affordable. No subscription, and you can link a bunch of them. So
Yep.
affordable. So
You can daisy
chain them.
Yep.
The good thing for that is that one thing that we're looking to do. Okay, now we're very passionate about this. Jason, which is the owner of Trollmaster, myself, we want to eventually, like every cultivator has to go and estimate your feeding time. Every so often, every few days or every week, and on an event, we've been doing AI now for a while, in a couple of rows in F1.
Yep.
And as long as the water content sensor is accurate, it's like you set it and forget it. Because all you set is your percentages, and all you got to do is just watch your chart. You don't have to go back and change everything. And I can honestly say that the first 2 rows look as good, and if not sometimes maybe slightly better.
I
than the others.
100% have had better that row 1 especially has been better than some of the rows that I irrigated
That you set your time, right?
timers and
that's something
monitoring.
to fucking be said of. That
100%.
I can't believe that AI is actually doing better than a person that's qualified, that does this every day, that knows the nuances, and it's doing it. And then now it's not only that, it's also saving the company money, because you're not over irrigating. So that means you're not throwing nutrients down the drain.
Exactly.
And it's super surprising that the first 2 rows I walk in and go, fuck, they look good.
Yep.
And then okay, do they look better? Maybe, or maybe it's in your mind.
Even if it's close.
Close, right?
And I'm like, this is a winner.
Yeah.
Even if it's close, and trust me, I'll drop my ego at any moment and be like, dude, this is the future. Well, I
It's
would
definitely the future.
If anything, I should be proud that it's doing it because I set it up right. Because it's an on-demand feeding system. You set parameters, and the sensors dictate when to feed. And I think with these new whatever we're going to call them, the new water content sensors, even better, because I've been doing it with the WCS2s.
Right.
Right. So it's like now it's really going to get even more dialed in. I'm excited. I think that's the future of commercial indoor farming, and farming in general, at least for cannabis. I think feed by demand systems are going to be the future, and I think somebody's job is literally going to be to walk around and check sensors and make sure they're functioning properly every day.
And checking the data.
I mean, that's
what we do.
Yeah, it's basically
But
what I'm doing.
You're not going to have
already.
you're not going to have to go to a controller and set, irrigation times. You know what I'm saying? You're just going to pretty much copy a percentage chart to say and paste it.
Yep.
And that's another thing that we're going to work on. The copy paste feature to alleviate human error and ease the workload on inputting stuff into the controller.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll find some bugs along the way. I'm sure we'll find something that needs to be improved. But I really think that this is going to change the industry, and it's going to put a lot of people, back on the map that really, lost their confidence with Trollmaster and their product, specifically the water content sensors. I think it's going to bring them back.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely agree with you with that, and I'm super excited to bring these in. So stay tuned on that, because that's coming. I don't know exactly when, but it's coming soon. So what do you think about all this toad venom saga going on lately? What's happening?
So the genetic is it's fire. I smoked it. I hadn't really been smoking for a while, and I smoked it, and it was great. It reminded me of like a classic, smoke. It's not like the new candy wave or anything like that. It was more old school OG to me. Like it tasted better than what and it's like we've been smoking candy for so long, or these candy varieties. It's like every time I switch to something else like that, it just reminds me of like, man, this is really what got me into this industry. It wasn't this candy wave.
Right.
I'm not hating on the candy wave. It made people's living, but the toad is fire. We have it in a room right now. We have the real toad, and I think it sucks that a lot of people got bamboozled in this situation, or whatever you want to call it. I feel for them. I've been in situations like that. We've been in situations like that where we had to order genetics from somebody in a tight spot, and the genetic wasn't what we actually ordered. There's mix-ups in nurseries all the time. It's unfortunate. I do feel for those people that purchased and ramped up thinking they were going to have something special, especially in these dire times in this industry. I think at the end of the day, credit goes to the breeder and the operators who can grow it great. Anybody could get their hands on any genetic. I'm not a fan of stealing genetics, obviously. I think that's not the way to go about things. But just like we talked about before, like I could give you a fucking turkey, but you got to cook it right. At the end of the day, like somebody could give you a genetic, as we've heard from a grower that we both respect in this industry. It's like, yeah, I'll give you the genetic because you're not going to grow it like me.
That's funny.
Right?
And he was right for a long time. We struggled, and
then we'll start. We'll get there.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think the wave is going to be here for a while. I can't.
It's going to go longer now because there were so many misrepresentations or accidents.
The lore of it is still like most people still haven't seen it or smoked it or are barely finding out about it. But yeah, people. My heart goes out to people that put it on the line and got the Detroit runts or whatever other genetic. That sucks. But I appreciate these waves because we catch them and we ride them until they go out, and we make some good flour out of it, and that's the industry. But I think our breeding program, it's only a matter of time before we find one. I think
that's funny. I was just going to start bringing that up because
I think that's where is this toad? Where is the Becky? Where is all this without a breeding program? You got to breed, you got to try, and it sucks. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, you say I'm not excited, but like breeding definitely doesn't excite me. That like
It does
there's
not
some
get them
people that
excited.
love it. That's what they want to do. They love hunting. They love all that kind of stuff. And maybe it's just because I've never been at a point in my career where I could do that comfortably. Because I've just always been on the production side of things, especially at commercial scale now for about 8 years. I just, it's maybe one day will be my thing, but right now I'm just like, no, pay the bills. We got a business to
Here's
run.
what's going to happen. So the guy, like I said, when I picked them up from another facility, or we decided to work together, they were very quiet. They were very private. They didn't share nothing. So when he came over to this side, it's like, fuck this guy. He's fucking going into the rooms every day, videoing, showing this, showing a bad crop. It's farming to me. I've been doing Instagram for a long time. I really don't care if people freaking hate on that. It's a testing facility. It was built to test stuff, whether it's nutrients, equipment. Shit happens, and he's a production guy. He's quality oriented. It's like fuck. He wants to win every time, and every room in that facility is a test. So, if we're going to test this, we're not going to hit home runs. Everybody wants to hit a home run every time, a grand slam. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't happen when you test shit. So, but he's gotten comfortable to the point now that, he understands the rooms. He understands the equipment. He's gotten good at it. He's got fucking great confidence. He can speak of it freely. He can probably even go to bat for me or for anybody that says, no, you're wrong, because this is what I've done and I've had experience with it. Now, the next thing that I'm bringing in is the breeding, and breeding is expensive and time-consuming, and there's zero guarantees. Zero guarantees. But I can tell you, this guy is going to catch the bug when we find a winner, that was actually bred in this facility in-house, and we can say, hey, you know what? This was made here. Nobody's got it. And hopefully, sometimes, I'm sure there's breeders that breed their whole life and they don't get any recognition. And that's what every person wants to do, or every outfit wants to do. And, we're no different. We're fucking no different.
Yeah, it's like a kid. It's
we're
like
no
your
different.
Kid. You're like, you think your kid is the best, right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I bred this one. Check it out.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this one. It's so great. And then, you get in front of 10 people and they're like, this isn't the one.
Yeah, not the one.
Dude, how many months worth
Kid's
of work?
retarded.
How many months of work went into this?
Kid's
And,
retarded.
It's tough. Like, I have a lot of respect for breeders. And that's why, like, going back to the toad, I'm like, man, like, Ronan and those guys, like, kudos, man. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like,
We just had a. I mean, obviously we did a lot of breeding. We got a fucking ton of seeds that we're gonna go through, but we did this last pheno hunt that we did pure melt with mango lemons, and I don't remember what
neon mangoes.
neon mangoes.
Yeah.
Neon mangoes. That's what it is. We did neon mangoes, and then we also did a bunch of blue lobster crosses.
Yep.
Were those for Cipher Genetics?
I believe so. Yeah.
A bunch of blue lobster crosses, with a grape lobster and London lobster and a bunch of stuff. And then so we're doing a lot of pheno hunting. We do a lot of testing, and we got a couple of outlookers that we could. Potential winners that we're gonna run again and see what we can do to pick out and see if there's anything there that's viable for us to put in a production run and then also put it back into the stores. Like I said, we have the toad venom. We're gonna see how it comes out. Is the real one? It's still in process, and hopefully if we can hit out of the park with that one.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when it finishes. I have high hopes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So what else we got to talk about? Anything interesting? Anything you want to share from the facility lately? Because like I said, well, I can give an explanation. So we have a 24 light LED room, and when I didn't know about breeding, and I still don't know much about breeding. I'm just learning. I'm 6 to 8 months in, so I'm a baby in this stuff. But when I built this place, I built a 24 light LED room for pheno hunting. Breeding is a little separate. Then you bring the seeds in there. You pop seeds, and then you grow out your seeds when we clone them, and then we grow from clone, not from seed, because we know now that it's different expression. But 24 lights. Imagine 24 lights, which is way too many. And people told me there was way too many, and I didn't listen, like I usually don't, because I'm going to do it my way. And it was fucking too many. 24 lights. I was over like 500 seeds, and I did that twice in a row. Top tier and second tier, so then increases the workload, because now every time you walk into the room, you have to go get ladders and go up top and then see how the different expressions. When you do commercial cultivation, and you learn the strains, then you know how they get fed. You barely get up on the ladder and look at the second tier because you already know it's well. Because if the first tier is looking good, the second tier is looking good when you build the spaces right, and there's proper airflow and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, when you're pheno hunting, you have to get in that room at a certain time, and you have to go in there every day and then look up there because things finish faster than others. They start smelling different. So think about 24 lights in a 5-foot wide bay. Let's say 2.5 pounds of light, just to keep the numbers simple. That's 50. That's close to 75 pounds. That would be 3 pounds of light. Would be 3 pounds of light would be 75 pounds. 75 pounds. 75 pounds. Let's say a grand a piece, just to keep the math simple. That's $75,000. In that room.
To potentially get nothing.
To get nothing, correct.
To potentially get nothing.
And we have sometimes,
Sometimes.
Sometimes we have.
Sometimes we think we have winners, and then we send them to testing, and they test low. And it's like,
low.
God.
Low.
And unfortunately, in the rec market, low testers just don't sell. No
They
matter
don't
how
sell.
good they are, no matter what.
So if you think about it, let's say, 24 lights, 25 lights, just 24 lights, 25 lights times 3 is 75 pounds, at $1,000 a pop, just to keep the math simple. That's $75,000 that you just threw down the drain, and you didn't get nothing for it, and it cost you.
The bill still, it costs you money.
It costs
you didn't
you
just
money.
lose 75 grand. You lost the potential to make 75 grand to pay your bills with.
Correct.
Now you have nothing, and those bills are still there.
So what we've done now is we split the top tier. We do production. We set it and kind of forget it. And then the first tier, we do the pheno hunt with roughly about 200 seeds, or 200, phenos to choose from. So at least the top tier somewhat reimburses you. You may not break even, but somewhere in there too, where it compensates you.
Better than nothing.
Better than, for the room,
It's better than nothing.
And another thing that we're starting to do is, when you sell these products, you can't put them all in a rec bag, because it's something new. People don't know what it is. There's too many different flavors. Right. So what are you going to do? So we need to get the lab going so we can get, if it's whatever profile, we can extract it and then at least make oil and at least get your money back. At least you broke even. You know what I'm saying? At the very least. So,
which is the next project?
Which is the next project, by the way. Model I's are on sale. I need the money to build this lab. I've been paying rent for the last 5 fucking years, and I gotta finish. I got all the equipment. I just gotta build it out. So, hopefully that's gonna happen here in the next year. And I've been saying that for like 2 years already, maybe longer. But it's gonna happen.
I believe you. I believe you.
It happened.
I'm gonna give you shit along the way, but I believe you.
You give me shit every day. These guys don't stop. Just like Instagram doesn't stop. All right, I think we did good for the day. We got an hour in. We got Josh back in here. Like I said, he's the director of cultivation at Miami Mango, and he keeps the plants looking prime. Thank you, Think Early D. This is a great episode for you. Trollmaster. We're bringing back the water content sensors. We're going to show the people in Mango Tech Store. Thank you again for letting us use the space. So that's thank you to me. And that's it.
All right, let's eat.